Hello. Welcome to this class. This is where we stopped in our previous class. So far we've talked on images, we've talked on lists, we've talked on tables, we've talked on paragraph and headings. So in this class we'll be talking on forms in HTML. So let's get straight into business. First, I know we decided not to be clearing our documents anymore, but let's see if you remembered what we did before. So I'm going to clear it this time, and we're going to start on a clean slate. So let's go to our browser and refresh, and then we'll start all over again. So now, how do we go? If you remember, the document type is HTML. It'll be a lot faster in this stage because we already know what we need to do. So then we have two siblings. We have the head, and today, like we said, we'll be talking on forms. So I'll talk forms in HTML. So this will be our title. So in the body tag, so our first header one, I know these things, I'm rushing it because we've already done this before. Our header one will be forms in HTML. Good. I remember we're supposed to put language here, English, and that's that. We'll go to our browser and refresh, and we have forms in HTML. So now, what are forms? Basically, we work with forms on a daily basis. You fill in documents, you fill in your information in the forms when you register for a site. You work with forms every day, and we'll be building our first form in this class. So how do we go about it? First, basically, and I would like to put a break tag, or let's just leave it. Forms are wrapped around the form tag like this. The form tag. I'll be using autocorrection. So action here is an attribute in a form tag. This action leads, if you're submitting your form, where should it be submitted to? Basically, that's what this attribute does. This attribute tells you, okay, this is a form you're creating, where should we submit it to? So normally you will put an address, or if you want it to address to your server or the URL you want the form to be submitted, you put it here. But in our case, since we are not submitting it anywhere, we'll just leave it blank, since it's just an example. So now there are different kind of forms. One of the things we put, let's see, if we go to our document, nothing is showing, but there's something we can do. We could put a field set around our form and put a legend. And this legend will now be the name for this form. So let's say we are doing a profile form where you can enter your profile info. So it's a profile form, and let's save. When we go back to our HTML, we'll see a field set has been created that takes up the whole area, basically, and it tells us the profile form. This is what a field set does. So we know we are inside of our form now. Now, inside of this field set, what we now do, we now write, okay, what's the first thing you put in a profile? They'll ask for your name. So name, what we'll do is we'll put a label. The for is not necessary in this, so we just put a label. And this label, the for is actually still for submitting. If you're submitting, there will be a need for a for attribute, but since we're not submitting this form, there's no need for that, basically. So the legend is okay, name. Watch this. The label, sorry, label is name. Watch what happens. We have name here, but we don't have an input to put it. So what do? We create an input immediately after it. Input. An input tag, okay, let me just write it without using the shortcut. An input tag is just like the image tag. It's self-closing. It does not have the opening and closing, so it's self-closing. So just put input. Then an attribute that is essential in writing your input tag is the type of input you want. What is the type? And there are different types of input. It could be a button, it could be a checkbox, it could be date time, it could be an email, it could be hidden, it could be month, number. So there are different kinds of inputs we could have. It could even be a URL, it could be a time, it could be, but for now, since we want to put name, our name is a text, so we'll put a text input, basically. So we save this and we go back to our refresh, and we'll see there is a text input now. So you can type whatever you want to type, but it doesn't really tell much. So what do we want the user to do? Basically, remember, we need the user to have the utmost experience. We could put something like a placeholder. Placeholder is like gives a subtle instruction to the user on what you should do. And let's say we tell the user your name, or say your full name here, and let's save. And when we save this, we go back to our document and see what happens. You see there's a placeholder. It is not part of, it is not like or does anything per se, but when immediately you click on it, you can now write your name, like in my case Beth-el, and it disappears. So it's just a placeholder. Okay, instead of your name, you could just write full name to make it short. So you could just say full name, and the person would understand what, the user would understand what you are requesting of him or her to put there. So full name. Now next we need another, what do we put again? Maybe your email. Let's say we are required to ask for your email. What we need to put is a label, again like we did in the first, and what we put is email, and we put an input, like I said, inputs are self-closing tags, and a special attribute we need to put is the type, and the type we're looking at here is email. Now let's see. See, the email is created next to it, full name, email. And if you notice, some classes ago we talked about block elements and block elements and inline elements. As we can see, the inputs and label, they're actually inline elements. That's why it's coming up beside it rather than straight down underneath it. To make this happen, we could just put a break tag between the name and the email field set fields that we've created. So we could just put a break tag, and everything just arranges itself, as in they will stack themselves on themselves. And I see it's really very close, so we could put another break tag. Basically, we could put another break tag. But this is not the best way to do this. When we start learning CSS, we'll be able to control this from CSS, but basically, since it's just the skeleton and HTML, the best way to really separate things is using break tags and horizontal rules. So you see, we have created that space by using 2 break tags. So now there's something missing here. There's a full name. We've not put a placeholder, so let's put a placeholder for the email. So we can now say placeholder and say give example at example.com. Or let's say you at example.com, something like that. And when we refresh, we are seeing that coming out here. So next, again, we need the person to probably input password. So remember our double breaks, break tag, another break tag. Then we now go, what we need is label, password. And remember, what we can do is now add inputs. Sorry, I'm used to using the shortcut, so inputs, and we'll add type, and this type is password. I'll put a placeholder, or just for password, enter your password. And let's save, go back and see what we are building. Now you see, enter your password. And since we put the type password, notice what happens when you are typing a password. It is hidden. It is hidden, so nobody gets to see what password you're typing. And that's awesome. That's awesome, especially with HTML5. This comes with HTML5, I think this comes with HTML5 basically. So now let's continue. So we've been able to enter our email, password. So now another type of input I would like to introduce us to is radio or radio buttons. Radio buttons, like where we have to choose one type of element over another. Let's put the normal break tag, break again. We need 2 break tags. Then now we need let's say you want to create a radio button between where somebody will have to choose his gender. So let's put label. We talked about the 4 attributes. It's not needed in this class, so let's label will say gender, sorry. So now we have inputs. We'll put in our input. And what type of input is this? It's called radio buttons. And in front of it, let's say male. I would like to copy this and just repeat it. Okay, so we'll put female. So now let's save. Let's go back and let's see what we have. We have male and female. It's not supposed to be so. Radio buttons, they're not supposed to be able to click them together. You're supposed to be able to click only one at a time. Let me refresh. If you notice, you're supposed to be, if you are either male or you're female, not both. So you're supposed to click one at the same time. But why is this not happening? Because our HTML file does not know that these two are related. It sees them as 2 different things. How do we tell HTML that we need one or another? There's an attribute we can now add. It's called the name attribute. And here we could now put, okay, once is gender, and we put the same thing here and say gender, name, gender. If you notice, it's lowercase. Conventionally, better to make your name element lowercase conventionally. So now let's go back to our document. Let's refresh. So we can now be able to choose either male or female, because both of them now carry the same name tag. Our document has now known that it's a radio button and they are both related. So now let's continue. Next off, what other elements would somebody request when you're filling a profile form? Another thing, it could maybe age. Let's go for age. How would you represent age? For instance, let's add a normal break tags. Another one. In fact, let's put a break tag between these two rather than being on the same. Let's put a break tag. Sorry, I meant Ctrl save not to select. Let's put a break tag and see what happens. Yeah. Okay, then let's put a break tag here, break, and see. Good. Gender, once it's like this, makes a whole lot of sense like this than when it's in the same line. So now let's continue. We need another break tag. We've been using too many break tags lately in this document, but we just need to create that separation. So we want to know another file. We need a label. We don't need a for yet, and this is for age. So how do we tell the age? There's something, rather than using an input, there's something known as the select box. So we use the select box this time, and we can say select and there is a name and ID, but this mostly also is for if we're submitting the form. Since we're just doing a normal skeleton, there won't be any need for this. In the select, we now have options, and the value is what we up value attribute here is also for you to what you'll be able to target back end when you are receiving this form. But it is good practice to be able to put the values here, but since we are not submitting it as well, I would let it off. But basically, if you're submitting it, you would have to use the value so that you'll be able to identify it at the back end when you're getting the form. So now, what values do we want to put in this our age select form? Let's say age 1 to or 0. Let's say 0 to 18. Copy this a couple of times and probably paste it 0 to 18. So we want 19 to 35. I think that's categorized as youth. Then we paste 36 to 40 or let's say 50. Then copy again 51 and above. Sorry. 51 and above. So just delete this. Zooming in, I don't know why it's zooming in. Let me try and fix this. Sorry, I was trying to magnify something. Let me reduce it. Let me reduce it. So how I'm doing this is just Control plus and Control minus, basically. That is just what is doing this. So like I was saying, so let's save this document and see what we have. Refresh, and we have our select button, age, and we can see we can select 35, 20 plus or 51 plus. Basically that is how the select an option works. So next on is the what other attribute we need to form sets we need to add. Let's put our normal break tags. Let's break twice. Then let's say you want bio. You want to put in your bio. So put a label as usual. Then I'll say bio. Your bio would probably be a text field where you can write so much. So what we'll put is a text. Sorry, not ex. Text area, and you can see this will just come up here. Let me show you what it is, and you can see bio, and you can be able to expand and shrink it, but you can equally be able to do this manually or from the back end. For instance, you can just put an attribute to your text area or rows, and you can say we want 10 rows, and let's say we want columns to be columns. We want calls to be let's say 10 also. So 10 rows, 10 columns. Let's see if that changes. You notice the rows have now increased and the columns have now shrunk to 10. So let's increase the columns to, let's say, 20 and see. Let's increase the columns to 20 and save. Please be saving. You see it has increased accordingly. So now, how do we submit our documents? We've created all this. Now we've entered either male or female. We've entered our age. We've written our bio. But how do we get to submit this? I don't like the way the bio is down. We could do something about it by putting maybe a break tag here and see if that takes it up. Okay, yes, now it's up. So how do we submit everything we've imputed here? Or before that, let's talk about checkboxes. Another input format you could have is checkboxes. Let's use our comments so that we'll be able to understand these things. Radio. Let's use our comments. These are radio buttons. Over here, these are select buttons. Then we have a text area. text area. So next we are going to look at, let's put our break tag, another break tag. Next we're going to look at checkboxes. So we have check boxes. So now, what kind of information do you put in checkboxes? Let's say what kind of device you're using or what kind of device you own. So let's put label. Sorry, I don't want to use a shortcut. Label. What devices do you own? So it's a question. So now we can choose multiple. If you have a laptop, a desktop, a smartphone, you can just choose. So basically, how do we do this? We put another input, not input, and remember they are self-closing tags, and this one, the type will be checkbox, and what will be the value? The value would be laptop. So let's see what we have. So if you notice, what kind of device you have, it has a value, but because we forgot to put the label, sorry, we messed up with the label of some kind. The label is not supposed to be this. This is not supposed to be the label. Sorry. Sorry, this is not supposed to be the label. No, it is. So I'm right. Sorry. So what we said, value laptop. Like I said, value is basically for when you're submitting. I guess that's why I missed it. I'm not supposed to put the value. In my head, I thought we're submitting something. So put laptop. Then what we have here, when we refresh, we have laptop. So we'll go back. Between this label, another thing is we need to put a break tag. We need to put a break tag so that we'll be able to understand more and see it clearly. So the next is maybe this value is not even needed. Don't think we need the value since we're not submitting anything, and we could even use a name. If we're submitting, we could use name in place of where we're using value. So don't need value. So let's put laptop. What do we need again? Desktop. If you're either using a laptop or a desktop, or let me copy this again and use that instead. So type checkbox desktop, or you could be using a smartphone basically. So let's save and go back to our site and see what we have. We have, what device do you own? Laptop, desktop, or smartphone. If you own just a laptop and a desktop, you choose laptop, smartphone. But if you own all, you can equally select all. But it doesn't look visually appealing like this. So what we could do is put a break tag in between them so that they'll be on the same line. To do that, we could just put a break. A break and a break. Let's see what we have. Okay, now we have what we want. So what kind of device do you own? A laptop, a desktop, or smartphone? Or you could own, yeah. So basically that's it. And I don't like the fact that we put this here. Let's take it up, then leave the bio down, because bio normally in forms used to be the last attribute. So where do we have our checkbox? That's why it's good to label. We copy it and put it here before the text area. Then we put our normal break tags, break between them, and see what. Okay, yes, age 18. What kind of device do you want there now? Normal. So now back to the question I was asking earlier. How do we submit our form after filling it? Now there's also another kind of input we can put after. Remember, we've already done this break tag, so let's just put input, and this input, the type is submit, and here we go. So we refresh and we see we have our submit button here, and as you can see, as I'm clicking it, it's submitting, but it is not going anywhere because we did not put anything in the actions bar when we created the form. But basically it is submitting. Now what if we don't want submit to be written here? We could change it to by adding a value property. So when we say value, we could now say submit your profile. And when we do this and save, let's refresh, you see it changes submit your profile, and it still does the same job of submitting. Now something else we could do is let's say we filled some name, Beth-el, put my email, example at beth-el.com, then password just random. I'm a male, yes, within this age group, and I own a laptop and I own a smartphone. I put some text, and let's say I want to clear this text rather than submit, because if you submit it will take you somewhere. Let's say I want to clear everything I've selected. There is an input for that, and that input is, let's just quickly add that one. We could add input. That input is what we call the type is reset. It's called the reset. And once you save, let's go refresh, you see the reset button just shows. Or you could just, rather than use the word reset, you could, like we did with this, you could change the value to clear form, and when you save, you have this. So submit your profile or you clear the form. So let's see how the clear works. You put our name, again Beth-el, email, example at beth-el.com, put a password, gender, age, I own a laptop, okay, a smartphone. I put a dummy text, and let's say I want to clear. It clears everything and turns it back to an empty form. Then I can refill and submit. So that is that. This is probably a very long video, and we made a couple of blunders in it, but what's a video without blunders? So now I hope you're able to understand and follow through with this form, because this is just basic bare bone form in um, HTML, and all these some of these full name, this placeholder that we added, they're actually HTML5 attributes that make your form more UX friendly, if I should use that word. So in case you have any question from this class, please ask. I beg you, please ask. I know it's quite long and we did quite a lot in one video, so please ask in case you got confused at any point, and I'll be on hand to clarify. Thank you very much. God bless you for watching this video, and it's a wrap.